take a
And
moment.
we are live.
Oh, look at that.
Cool.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I need to live stream the meeting. Take a
And
moment.
we are live.
Yep. Oh, look at that.
Cool. Okay, it's all live. It's all good. I hear you repeating the same stuff.
Yeah, I can see it. It's up and running.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It like started streaming on my computer and I heard my voice and I was like, what's happening?
Shall we open the gates?
Let's open the gates.
Yay! Okay.
WWJ number 30. Or number 29.
Oh,
29.
29.
Ah, 29.
Sorry.
And yeah, it would be nice if we could approach also a bit of how Peter and Karen got excited about using all these creativity methods to engage students, and also how their partnership came to be. How did they started working together on these topics?
I don't know if they might talk a little bit about that. I think in the beginning there's a.
Yeah, I think so. It provides some sort of background, and then we dive into the exercises.
Yep.
We talk about it.
Someone might want to put the decompression zone slide up.
Do you have a decompression zone slide, Katie?
I do not.
I will send you the link.
Welcome, Kate and Malin. And
Kate is my friend.
Hi, Kate, friend of MIMP.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
Welcome.
All right. Well, for those of you who are new here, this is what we call the decompression zone. The web jam starts at the top of the hour. We have the speakers here and a number of the facilitators and coordinators getting ready. We are live broadcasting on YouTube, so if you do not want to appear on YouTube or be recorded, you may want to keep your video off. Of course, we love to see you and meet you, so you're also welcome to turn on your video if you don't mind being recorded.
Carol is back. Hi,
Hi,
Carol.
Carol.
All right. Okay, I got more people coming in. Jen, I recognize Jen.
So who's coming into the room now?
Hello, Jen.
Hello, we have Jen back. She's being shy today. She's not turning the camera.
No, our camera's on. Oh. Peter, how warm is it down in Texas today?
It is 70 degrees and high humidity.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
it's pretty gross.
Isn't it always high humidity?
Unless we get a cold front. But yeah, usually. I'm not a hot weather person. I don't know why people like the weather in Texas so much.
I agree.
It just started raining up here. I bet everyone's excited to know that. In upstate New York. Kind of a dismal looking day.
Are the leaves changing, Karen?
Oh yeah, they're probably pretty much peak right now.
Cool. Nice.
It's a bunch of red, a lot of red. In the Adirondacks, we were in the Adirondacks a weekend and a week and a half ago, and they were at peak and really red. It's a really red year for some reason. It's gorgeous.
Cool. Great.
It was impressive. A little less red down here for some reason. But
Well, I think the red is the sugar maples.
Yeah. Right. But it varies where they are too. It seems to be complicated to be a tree.
I remember learning because you always assume that the like leaves just fall. But what actually happens is because the weather is getting colder and because there's less sun, that the trees are actually stopping nourishing the leaves. So it's actually more of a push, like they're pushed off of the tree.
Yeah, it's true. And then you get one big storm, right? And they're all gone because they were on so tenuously in the first place.
Exactly.
We haven't had that storm yet. I hope it's not today. I don't think so. Might be.
All right, we got 21. All right, we're gonna wait a few more minutes. We're close to the top of the hour. Welcome everybody to Backstage. How you doing? How you doing?
Hi, Steve. I'm fine. How are you?
Pretty good.
We should have kept our educational affiliation secret. That's why people aren't coming.
So, they're like Colgate. It's about toothpaste. What do I need to know about that?
So often, yeah. So often.
I know.
I know you do, yeah. Especially when you leave the country, which makes perfect sense, because why would you have heard of Colgate beyond?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in Texas State, our claim to fame is that we're the only institution in Texas to have graduated a president of the United States.
Who was that?
Johnson?
Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
He's a controversial figure though, so sometimes people don't like talking about it, but that's our claim to fame. It's not toothpaste, it's LBJ.
I don't think we have one. We don't have a president. Katie, do we have a president? Steve?
I don't think we have a president.
We have two Congress people right now.
Oh,
right.
my brain went to the guy who wrote a lot of like the commonplace Christmas carols. Like I feel like that's pretty up there. I think he did like Rudolph, and there's another one that's like pretty like well known. And that guy came out of Colgate.
Oh, that's so nice.
What's his name?
So
What's his name?
I could not tell you.
Not to look it up.
I know he exists.
You sure he doesn't exist? You have a predilection for Christmas carols. Are you sure he's not like
I really do. Yeah, it is odd, but I know he exists. I will try to figure this out.
Okay. Hello, Sean. How are you?
Steve, how are you? Long time, buddy. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
Good.
I'm glad you could join us. Oh, and we got Elizabeth Lucero. I haven't seen her in a while. All right, we're getting up. We'll give it a few more minutes just to make sure everybody's here. Hello, Patrick. Hello, Patricia. Okay, we're just waiting, everybody. This is still Backstage for Wednesday Web Jam number 29. I know we had about 60 some people registered, so I'm just waiting for the numbers to get up a little more before I introduce our speakers. Thank you for coming. We got people from like all over, as usual.
We're used to small audiences.
Yeah, that's okay, right. Well, we're used to around 50 or 60 or so. Anyway, I will start giving, for the people who are new here, who might be coming for the first time, this is a weekly web jam that the Design Thinkers Group community has been running since March. This is our 29th weekly meeting. We've covered a range of topics. We've had speakers from a number of different disciplines and from many different countries, talking about design thinking, human-centered design, online facilitation, and all the different applications of that. It's been a great community, kind of a community of practice where people have been learning ways to do facilitating and running meetings online and being creative and innovative online. So for all of you who are new here and those who are not, I just want to make sure you remember that We are going to be live cast on YouTube. So right now on YouTube, there's a channel where they're seeing all our faces, and that's being recorded. So I am required by European law to make sure you know that your face and voice are being broadcast and recorded. If you do not want to be broadcast and recorded, you should turn off your video and maybe not speak. So, you know, if you're in witness protection or something like that, and you can't afford to have your face shown, please turn off your video. Anyway, I would like to start the web jam with the introduction of our speakers today. We have Peter Tschirhart and Karen Harpp. Peter is an assistant dean at Texas State University down in Austin, Texas, and he teaches a class on research methods. And Karen Harpp is a professor at Colgate University, which is my alma mater, where I went to school many years ago. That's in upstate New York. And she's a professor in the geology and the peace studies department, which she might explain later. And both Peter and Karen use human-centered design methods in their teaching. And we thought it would be interesting to have them demonstrate to our community how they've been adapting their teaching methods in these COVID times for online. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to Karen and Peter and let them take it on. Karen and Peter.
So thank you, Steve, and thanks to all the WebJam support people. We're totally grateful for all of your help and know that you do it all in a volunteer basis. I've been to a number of WebJams. I've really enjoyed them. And it's pretty exciting for us to be here. As Steve said, I'm Karen Harpp. I'm in the geology department at Colgate University, where I study volcanoes using geochemistry, basically. Oddly, I'm also in the Peace and Conflict Studies program, Peace and Conflict, right? Not just peace studies, because you usually talk about war anyway. Anyway, I teach classes about weapons technology, which is kind of a long story, which I will not get into at this point, but I guess what it means is I like to work with large, explosive, unpredictable systems, basically. Anyway, I've had a heavily project-based approach in my teaching throughout my career. I realized really early on that students learn better by doing, and they also learn better when they're having fun doing it and have some agency or a lot of agency over what they're doing. So when I started working with Peter, my colleague and co-presenter, because he was at Colgate running the scholars programs there for a few years, and I was running one with him, we turned to the collaborative and we basically took the collaborative and interactivity dial and turned it up to 11 in lots of different ways. And we began integrating human-centered design methods into our classes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Peter.
Good morning or good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Peter Tschirhart. I'm the Associate Dean in the Honors College at Texas State, which is a large public institution outside of Austin, Texas. And for people who aren't familiar with honors colleges, they're kind of like liberal arts colleges within a larger institution. So students kind of get the best of both worlds. And I worked for about 5 years at Colgate University, where I met Karen, and I managed a program called the Benton Scholars and the Alumni Memorial Scholars and a few other things. And my PhD is in music from the University of Virginia, and I was a classical musician as an undergrad. I went to Rice University Shepherd School. But today I teach a research development course for the Honors College. And then next semester, I'm teaching a course called The Aesthetics of Failure, which I'm pretty excited about. And even though I'm no longer at Colgate, Karen and I still offer workshops and collaborate as often as we can. And when we do, we like to kind of work under the moniker of the project because it encapsulates our belief in the importance of project and problem-focused learning. And we created a cool logo and we added it to some of our slides. And so you may see it. And with that, Karen, I think we're ready to go.
Awesome. Okay, so online education, of course, as we all know, has been around for decades, right? And if you're old enough to remember this, correspondence courses have been around even longer, where you got your assignments by the snail mail, basically, from the post office. I'm generalizing a bit when I say what I'm about to say, but the original distance learning methods, the online ed, were developed primarily for people who needed flexibility. They needed to have schedules where they could balance work and school at their convenience. So what that's meant is that online ed pedagogies have evolved to be heavily asynchronous, right? With few interactive components, relatively speaking, early on at least. And this is a structure that really was preferred and absolutely required by many people who had to fit their academic work into the spaces between their family and work obligations. Peter.
Right. So the asynchronous approach really contrasts starkly with what research in pedagogy and teaching has shown for the past decade or so. For instance, interdisciplinary seminars where students sit around a table together used to be this radical notion. You had two faculty from different disciplines teaching a class. But now cutting edge pedagogy research really focuses on engagement. And that's because we know that students learn more when they're invested in the subject they're studying, even though they may not always feel like they're learning. The research shows that they are. And today at liberal arts colleges and honors colleges, students and faculty really expect the high-touch in-person educational experience with an emphasis on classroom environments that prioritize active learning and discovery-based learning and project-based learning, and otherwise really extensive interpersonal engagement. So in that sense, in that context, design thinking has proven to be a really valuable tool for both Karen and me. Both together and separately, we've worked to deploy design thinking in situations that really aren't about design thinking as such. So at Texas State, we're a large university. We have entire academic units that are dedicated to teaching students design thinking in the art design department. But Karen and I, use it in unusual ways to teach things like geology or research development or acoustic ecology or whatever it is. And for us, it's a human-centered pedagogy that asks students to put themselves in the position of designers or maybe in the position of clients.
So the sudden shift online that was necessitated by the virus created a need for a genre of education that really literally had never existed before, right? These are educational experiences geared for students going to school full-time at residential colleges, not taking courses online intentionally, who expect to interact extensively with their colleagues, with their friends, with their faculty, and with staff to build strong relationships and to really have highly engaging experiences throughout their classes. But because this need never existed, right, because we were in person before, moving this in-person style education online kind of had to be reinvented or invented from zero, right? So there's relatively little research or innovation done on this topic to start with, and how to take this kind of very highly interactive, high-touch classroom style online. And that pushed educators, or is pushing educators around the world, to get creative and really look beyond conventional approaches to teaching.
So what we are going to present today is a handful of examples that show how we've approached this sudden shift to intense online hands-on learning. And this falls under a larger umbrella. So when Karen and I were working together at Colgate, we started to appreciate design thinking for a few different reasons. And a lot of these were inspired by some of the training we got at Stanford Design School. But first, it's a really fantastic way to give students a plausible real world reason to learn course content. It puts the learning they're doing in the abstract within a framework or a context. So students may think they're creating a documentary film for kids, but really what they're doing is learning basic biology or something like that. The second thing is that it teaches skills and competencies that are pretty rare today, at least, or maybe I'm just too old and that's what I think, but very successful, high achieving students are really fantastic box checkers. I see it all the time in the honors college. I saw it all the time when I was at Colgate. They are less good at operating in ambiguous environments without clear-cut boundaries, where they have to find a solution or create work for themselves or develop questions to ask. They're just not good at that. They're good at answering, they're good at completing, but they're not good at creating. And so the third thing we noticed is that lectures and even seminars are really fundamentally consumer goods. We don't like to admit that in the academy, but they're really consumables. They ask you to receive information and respond to it. But a cornerstone of our goal in using design thinking is to shift the student mindset away from consumption and towards production. We want students to produce knowledge and not just consume knowledge. We think this is good for society and good for the academy. So in the spirit of design thinking, we're not going to talk too much about our experiments. We want you to experience them in a way that the students would experience them in our class. We've chosen some that are curated specifically that don't involve outside readings or preparation and that sort of stuff. So we're going to show rather than tell today. And we're going to give you the chance to empathize with what it's like to be in our class in the COVID era.
So what we get to work with, or got to work with originally online in ed, were traditional learning management systems. And these are great for managing data and assignments and tests, but they're really not good at creating interactive experiences for students. There are minor ways to adjust those, but they're not really, like, mostly discussion boards and things like that. But there aren't a lot of really truly interactive mechanisms. So one approach that we've used is to leverage interactive online tools that have conventionally been geared for design and business uses, particularly human-centered design fields. Mostly things like brainstorm boards, such as Mural, which is the one we're going to use today, Stormboard, Miro, other apps basically like that. So Peter's going to explain how we're going to use our first Mural.
Yes, so we're going to start today like we would start one of our classes, with a stoke or an energizer. This is an activity we'd use to get our students' creative juices flowing before class and get them in the mood to do creative work. Some of our American guests may be more familiar with this activity. It's called a Mad Lib. And generally speaking, what a Mad Lib is a pre-existing text with keywords deleted, and participants then have to create new words to fill those blanks. So we chose a text today strategically for this audience that we hope you get a kick out of. We're not going to give you many more instructions than that. We're going to send you into the breakout rooms, and your facilitators are going to lead you through the activity and tell you what to do and when to do it.
Okay, awesome. MIMP is going to be sending the breakout room configurations shortly. So once you get into your breakout rooms, just take a look at that number and then click the appropriate link that's going to be in the chat. For our YouTube live people, I just request, so breakout room 1, you are going to go to your breakout room, but then you're just going to come right back to the main room. So you'll basically just be going, checking you're in breakout room 1, click the link to breakout room 1, and then you're coming right back so that people on the YouTube live can actually see something. And as you can see, MIMP just sent the links to the mural rooms in the chat box below. So please just make sure you click on your appropriate link once you're in your breakout room, which I will be opening now. Oh, also, hi, I'm Katie. I work with the Wednesday Web Jams. I'm not just a participant who decided to really take the reins here. All right, rooms are open now, so please feel free to enter your rooms. And breakout room 1, I'll see you shortly.
If you're new here, you have to click on Join Breakout Room. There should be a box on your screen that says Join Breakout Room, and that's what you want to do.
Katie, I just clicked decline on mine, so I'm not going to go anywhere.
Perfect. And we should be, the breakout room 1 people should be coming back shortly. And if they don't, I'll hop in and make sure that they all come back. All right. I may hop in there and just make sure that they all come back. So Peter, I might leave you alone for just a second.
Yeah, no worries. I'll say hi to YouTube. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to fake breakout room number 1. So should we get started, Katie? Are we all back? Okay, I think she was muted, but I think I got the point.
Sorry, yes. Yes.
I read the body language. Okay, so make sure in the chat that you click mural number 1 and you'll join us on the mural board. This is a timed activity, so speed is going to be of the essence here. The first thing we're going to do, we don't have to think too much about this. To some extent, you want to access your subconscious, but we want We want to follow the prompt in each box. So it says adjective, verb, or emotion, something like that. We want to put an idea for each box. So if you can put one idea per box, that would be great. If you need help remembering the different types of speech, so what is a positive adjective or a present participle of a verb, there's a help guide at the top of the screen. But I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to fill as many ideas in these boxes as we can. And the only thing we'd say is to try and use the rectangular sticky notes instead of the square sticky notes, and it'll make sense why in a few minutes. But if you need help, let me know. But I am going to set the timer now. So we're going to do this for 5 minutes. Put as many ideas in the boxes as possible.
I'm seeing that somebody wrote ponder, and I love that word. So shout out to whoever wrote ponder.
All right, about 3 minutes and 45 seconds. There's no right or wrong answer. Good job, everybody. Keep it up. We have about a minute and a half to go. Minute and 40 seconds. Sometimes I'll deflate the time to motivate my students, but you know how this is. about 20 seconds to go. Just finish up your final thoughts. All right, so time is up. So we're going to move on to step 2 here. We have a bunch of options in these boxes. I threw some in myself just to make sure we have enough to choose from. The next thing we have to do is decide which ones we want to preserve and save into the next round. So what I'm going to do is set up a round of voting, a voting session in the mural board. Everybody is going to get 19 votes, which equals 1 vote per box. And to vote, what you have to do is to click on the sticky note that you think is the best version of what that box prompt is. So I am going to create the 19 votes. Best option per box. Any member, so I will end this after we reach about 3 or 4 minutes, hopefully be like 3 minutes. Don't overthink this, choose your favorite option. Here goes the voting session, and it starts now.
It didn't give me a vote per box.
So the trick is, the secret is that there's actually not a requirement that you vote more than once per box. So you could have, if you felt really strongly, you could vote 19 times on one sticky note, but it should allow you to withdraw a vote.
It hasn't given me 19.
Oh, really?
Got 9, and it's telling me I have no votes left.
Are you the visiting sea lion?
How do I know what I am?
No, I'm the visiting sea lion.
Or the visiting bear? It looks like the visiting bear or the visiting sea lion both have 0 votes. I don't know what to tell you. I was able to get 19, so it's possible you double clicked somewhere.
Oh, you know what? Each one that I voted says 2, so maybe it's, yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry. Okay, we have 35 seconds. We have a few people with outstanding votes. Katie, you didn't vote.
So this happened yesterday when we were trying it out. I promise I voted. It's just
it's
saying
weird.
for whatever reason.
Yeah, when I see it, I can see all your votes were used. But when you pull it up, it looked like you didn't. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like we are done. Everyone has voted. So I am going to release the results. Now, the main results page isn't super important. What matters here is that each winning sticky note has been highlighted with a big circle on it. So you can see which one was the champion. There are some ties, but that's okay. We'll sort that out in a second. Now, the next task here is to move the winning word or winning concept over to the text. So I have just deleted the text on the right-hand side. You want to move the winning result from box number 1 into blank number 1. So I'll show you what I mean. The winner from box 1 was pleasant. So that goes into blank number 1. So find the winners. If there's a tie, just grab the word that you think is most interesting and move it over. There are some duplicates. So if there's a duplicate, just do Command D or copy and paste it and put it in the spot. Okay, so we have about 3 minutes to get this task done. If somebody wants to start at the bottom, that would be great. I'll work on some down there as well. Okay, I think we may be done. Looks like we need 12 and then we can continue on. All right.
Yeah, looks like
Ta-da.
everyone is full.
So now what we have here is a modified text by Jean Baudrillard, the French philosopher and writer. It has been updated according to our subconscious desires for words. So do we have anybody who could volunteer to read the text? Does anybody volunteer? Anybody love their French philosophy? Sorry, who? Is that
I was gonna
Katie?
say I can read it if
Go for
nobody
it.
else wants to. All right, ready
Give
everyone?
it a dramatic flair, Katie. Give it a dramatic flair.
Okay, here we go. Pleasant America, the lyrical nature of pure joyful, as against the anxiety of European chairs. For me, there is no cactus of America. I ask of the Americans only that they be respectful. I do not ask them to be organized, ecstatic, or original. I ask them only to kick a space incommensurate with my own, to be for me the highest pleasant point, the finest orbital basal. Why should I go and ponder myself in France, in the stink and the local, which are merely the shreds and vestiges of centrality? I want to accenture myself to become oily, but I want to do so in a place that is the stone of the world. And in the sense of the longest fast food outlet, the quirkiest suburb or the blandest of peculiar American cars is more at the stone of the world than any of the pants of old Europe. This is the only country which gives you the opportunity to be so sluggishly naive. Things, faces, skies, and deserts are expected to be simply what they are. This is the land of the just as it is.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so Katie, can you put back up the slides and we can show the original version of this text while we wait for people to come back in?
Yeah, of course. Just give me one moment.
So we wanted to do something as we were putting this together that would be amusing and poke fun at America, maybe. We're pretty easy to poke fun of. But I also love Baudrillard and many of the designers and architects that I've met throughout my life also love Baudrillard. Or hate Baudrillard, depending on where they fall in this, but at least know who he is. So should we give a minute warning to the rest of the groups? And
yes, I can do that.
This is a really fantastic book if you have not read it. It has really wonderful descriptions of the American landscape and American cities. Any updates from the rooms, Katie?
I just sent them a 1-minute warning. I'm about to
Okay.
close the rooms just so we can bring everybody back.
Yes, we must be on time.
That was actually my first, having now done this twice, I think this is my first time reading the actual text.
It's a really beautiful text. It's like I
It
said, it's a
is.
great book.
Yeah, when you throw like cactus and like pants in there in the middle of this, it really,
Right.
it distracts from the prose, but it is pretty beautiful.
But there's also some truth in there. That's what I always find with that. That's why Mad Libs is funny, because you change the words and there's new truth that you discover.
Yeah, we had no dragon fruit in America.
Right.
Or there is no dragon fruit of America. It was, which is fair. I don't quite know how, but somehow it is. We're still waiting on a few rooms, right?
Yeah, they should be closing in just a moment. 3, 2, 1, and everybody should be flooding back. Yep, it looks like we have everybody back.
They're coming back.
The
All right, so if
banana
you're just
of the world. We are the banana of the world.
so if you are just returning to the room, we have the original text that Baudrillard wrote on the screen. Like I said before we went to breakout rooms, this is an activity we use at the start of classes to get our students working together and to get their creative juices flowing before we do something in class. And the text could be anything, but we chose Baudrillard for this audience, partly because I love Baudrillard, but also many of the designers and architects I've met throughout my life also read Baudrillard just as a matter of course in part of those fancy design theory classes. So I think we're ready to move on.
Well, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. Another reason that we do things like this, even if they don't always feel super dynamic at the time, is because in the online world where you don't walk to class anymore or commute to class anymore, sometimes you just leap from one thing into another. And I've found that it's really, we both have, that it's really hard for students to sometimes switch gears from whatever they were doing before. And this gives you a little transition zone where they can kind of decompress from what they were doing before and then get their heads ready for class. So these kinds of activities have proven to be pretty important in all different styles. Sorry to interrupt, Peter, go for it.
No, all good. So I mentioned this earlier, but one of the major systemic issues our students face is following instructions, but not in the way you think. That sounds odd to hear, I'm sure, but they're so accustomed to following instructions that we often find they aren't prepared to think or act creatively or respond to new information. And as we know, regardless of your major or area of focus in college, working in the real world requires making independent decisions about 1,000 times a day about the direction of a project or discovering a new problem or deciding to take a new direction or taking action to apply what you've learned analogically to a new situation. So ambiguity is a huge challenge for our students, and it's one that liberal arts colleges and honors colleges are ideally positioned to help overcome because our students are working independently on research and other things. But our students resist it, even though it's relevant to every discipline and it's especially a significant an obstacle in research development, which is what I teach right now in the Honors College. Oh, Karen, you're muted.
Sorry. The mural we're going to ask you to do now is one that is designed explicitly to give you a short experience to grapple with ambiguity. It's the same way our students would have to grapple with ambiguity. So we're going to ask you to give it a try for maybe 10 to 12 minutes, very short, so you don't have to suffer for long, but it's worth a try. And it gives you a moment to communicate and commune with the people in your breakout room too. The tasks that it's going to ask you to do are intentionally ambiguous. They will feel poorly structured. They're intentionally structured to be vague. So please immerse yourself in that experience. Keep track of your reactions, keep track of how you feel, keep track of your decisions, and then ultimately see what you can produce. And remember, this is geared for people far less accustomed to dealing with ambiguity than you all are as designers. One thing, though, to remember is that your goal here is to produce, is to work together as a group to produce something. Whatever that happens to be, is entirely up to you. And then we'll talk about what this experience is like. So there's kind of a meta level to this, right? You're going to try it, see how it goes, putting your your brain into the space that a college student or university level student would have, and then see how you can grapple with this experience and see what it's like. So when you get to your breakout room, the number of your breakout room will correspond to the space on the mural. So there are actually 6 groups working on each mural. It will make sense, and we'll make sure
You'll have to, will the link, but they will have to find their spot on that mural, right? So if you're in breakout room 7, find the spot that's labeled 7 on the mural. You'll have to you'll have to move your cursor around and shrink and focus it to find it.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, so everybody should see that MIMP just sent in the breakout room links. So just same again, look at the breakout room number you have. So then you'll go to a link, and then also, again, just find your space on that mural. If there are no questions, I will be opening the rooms. If we could just have breakout room 18, I think that'll be Ezekiel and Steve. You two can just stay here because we're gonna have somebody in plenary. So if you two want to stay here and do breakout room 18 in here, that would be great. And
for everybody else, don't click on anything until you see what room number you're in. It's not going to be the same as the last time. Yeah, Jeroen.
All right.
You're good? Okay.
All right. So long, everyone.
Okay. Good luck.
Katie, again, do you want me staying here for 19?
So you and Karen can do whatever you want. I put both of you in a breakout room just in case you two wanted to go hang.
Sure.
Totally
We'll
up
leave
to
you
you.
be.
I got bounced from 6.
Hold on one second. So you should have a button at the bottom of your
join.
Yep, just hit
No,
join.
now I'm going to 5.
Perfect.
I haven't been assigned any.
I know, I'm working on it right now. I will send you in just a moment.
So Katie, why don't I, should I share my screen for 18 so people can see what we're doing?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, easy. I will share my screen.
Go for it, Steve.
One participant can share at a time. Let's see if it's going to let me. Where is my thing? I'm just trying to find the whiteboard that I'm on.
Bottom right.
There we go. I got it. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see the WWJ ambiguity?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Group 8. So
also, Sankalita and Carrie, you should have an option at the bottom of your Zoom window to join a breakout room. So if you just want to click on that button and then hit join, you two should be able to go into breakout room 4. But if you just want to hang in the plenary and do that, you're also welcome to do that. But it might be easier if you go into your breakout room.
So Ezekiel, you see the deck and it says delete each card to reveal the next?
Yes.
Let's delete the first one. And then we'll read each one. Interesting. Now I'm having trouble clicking on it, but okay.
Oh, yeah, it's locked.
Let's see if we can unlock it. That's interesting. Because I thought, yeah, they're locked.
Actually, on my screen it says view only up on the top left.
Right. Oh no.
So it's a view only link.
We gotta, hey Katie. Oh no. Let me see if I can communicate with Peter. Is locked. Can't undo the post-its. Let's see, what are we going to do about this? Katie, how do we get, our mural is locked and I don't know if it's the same for everybody else. But that's a problem.
Okay.
I don't, Peter, online members, visitors, offline. I'm only view only. The link that you hit was view only, so I can't unlock the things. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay.
Problem on our side as well. I think that's what you guys are dealing with.
Yeah, I think
they're
it's the
all
last
locked.
one.
So we need
Okay.
Peter to unlock them.
Yep, I think it's in the, it looks like it's in the last one. So I'm going to tell them to go do that. You're back.
Is there a way for us to send an email, something to all those?
No, I'll be, yeah, I'll be in that. No, I'll be in a different. So I don't know how to do that, but when they unlock the mural, will it just it should just unlock for everybody, or do they have to refresh their browser, or we don't know that yet.
Katie should just send them a message that says we're trying to unlock the, whatever it is, 14 through 18, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Okay, my screen just asked me to jump in again to like sign my name. The view only is gone. Okay, now I can select.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to my room.
Okay, go back to your room.
All right, Steve, so are we ready to?
Yeah, you go ahead, Ezekiel. I can't do it for some reason, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna delete.
Yep, delete it. Okay.
Take a deep breath.
Ready? Okay.
Now, I recently learned we should only breathe through our nose. So
yeah, that's very yoga.
Try to avoid mouth breathing.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Do you want to drag that post-it to the screen so we know, kind of remember what we did?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay. Now, learn about different forms of user engagement. Well, there's talking directly to people.
Yeah, there's letting people edit the mural that you're on.
Yep. There's mural, there's video, there's, okay. I don't know, we have learned about that. I guess we could go do research on it. You want to move it?
Sure. Well, Wednesday Web Jam, that's been all about different forms of user engagement.
Embrace the ambiguity.
Oh, yes.
We're embracing all you ambiguous
right
people.
now, what's going on with COVID? What's going to happen, right?
Donald Trump sent 200 tweets last night. That's great.
I just saw some headline about that. Well, anyway, we'll save that topic for another time. Hint, it's hard for everyone at first.
Yep.
Well, what was that? What do you think?
It's just a hint. It is hard. We're probably doing better at it than most because we've done mural before. Let's go back. I mean,
maybe
let's drag it.
I think walking is hard for everybody at first.
Choose something to do, then do it. What do you want to do? Can you pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time?
I really need a drink of water, so I'm just gonna do that right now.
I'm gonna rub my tummy and pat my head. Or you guys can do this thing, remember, where I tried to get everybody to do their fingers in different directions.
Oh, that one.
Finger goes that way, and
so
one
tricky.
goes that way, or
I try to start with one hand and then but as soon as I get the other hand going, it's
hard. Okay.
Next. Hint, open-ended questions get people talking. Start your questions with, let me make this bigger. Start your questions with words like how or why, rather than do or have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now those are good interview tips for design thinking. So
that is true.
Yeah. Exploring people's needs. All right. I like that. So Ezekiel, how do you like using mural for this type of exercise?
How do I like mural? I like this digital whiteboards very much. It definitely takes the experience of collaborating to a whole new level.
Yeah, as long as the technology is working.
Yeah, sometimes like Google Docs and stuff like that is nice, but you just need more flexibility. Okay, 5 minutes left.
Discuss how each of your fields might tackle this question. What are our fields? What design thinking, I guess, and this is designed for students. So if they're focusing on science or engineering, how could they tackle the question about open-ended questions? Maybe is that what they're talking about? So how, whoa, what'd you do? I think somebody expanded something massively on another. Yeah, oh boy. What did somebody do? Somebody took,
okay, it's gone.
2x2 grid. I don't know where they got that. Okay, now we'll go back to our thing. Okay. Discuss how, okay, each of your fields might tackle this question. Like the question, like with engineering, it's like, how might we build a bridge that spans this gap, you know, this 5-mile gap or something like that, or body of water, or how might education be adapted for an online environment? Why should we?
Yeah.
I don't, why?
And I think this is, that's a good question. It's kind of like some of the associative exercises that we do. Yeah, like say like when we do brand hijack or superhero or even think wrong, when just trying to like mash up two things together, and typically like some fresh new ideas come out of it.
True.
All right, so combine approaches into a project plan.
Okay, so we haven't done that yet, but what do we, I guess we would come into a bunch of different approaches. I would imagine they get more time. Combine approaches into a project plan. Well, the first thing might be to come up with a question, a challenge, to frame a challenge, right? That would be, to me, the start of a project plan. Frame a challenge and then embark on, and then figure out the stakeholders that we need to research. I mean, I'm just taking the typical design thinking approach. Do we want to move that thing? Do we want to put in some Post-its about a project plan, like frame a challenge or anything like that?
So let's see, do we?
How much time do we have, Katie?
About 2 minutes.
Okay. And you can see how this would be challenging to students who'd never done this before. Like, wait, you know, what are we supposed to achieve? How do we get graded on this? It could be really frustrating. Katie, you said that yesterday. Did you do this? Did Karen do this to you? Or you probably
I've never done this.
Report back.
Okay.
Combine well, so we don't have a project, so it can be anything.
Right.
You have a minute to do it.
I can't do, for some reason, my cursor, I can't do anything. It's view only, I guess. So I'm still view only.
Odd.
I don't know why.
It might be because you were sharing it and it just didn't refresh or something.
True. That, okay. Well, Ezekiel, let's see, combine approaches into a project plan. Let's see, report back. So we basically would need a project plan.
Yeah, but we don't have a project per se. So it can be anything.
I don't know how to use Mural to conduct research. You know, like.
Well, I've been curious about how to use Mural to create environments. So I went through one day. I just got curious, and I got curious about the equivalency of pixels to like actual inches. And then if you stretch a mural, the canvas all the way out, which is 60,000 pixels in each direction, it's pretty big. It was like 2,500 square feet or something to that effect.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I thought, like, well, what if you can replicate, you know, things to scale within that space? Right. Like.
All right. Just close the rooms. People should be coming back shortly.
For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, we've been working with an experiment or kind of demonstrating how to use Mural to explore ambiguity or to tackle ambiguous challenges. And this was designed by our speakers, Peter Tschirhart and Karen Harpp today. So we've been doing that. That's what you've been watching. Ezekiel, I'm going to stop sharing my mural. So as people come back, we can all debrief about this. You can see it's a bit of a confusing exercise.
Squiggly.
Sounds like it was a success then, eh?
Well, what I'm interested in is even though the rooms are being closed, people aren't coming back quickly. That means that they're probably trying to tackle the problem and they're still working on some sort of solution, right? If they're sick of it, they just click leave and they get out. Here we go. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Okay.
Hello, welcome back,
Welcome back,
everyone.
everybody.
Hey.
We have a lot of frustrated people.
Yeah.
Challenged.
Yeah.
Challenged. We're calling
Excellent.
it challenged, not frustrated.
Challenge, sorry, challenge.
So we were talking in both of those groups about the difference between giving people instructions in mural versus having them go hands-on. And I've tried to use mural in a couple of them. It just seems like it's a really time-consuming process. How have you in the real world been able to really leverage this brilliant tool without needing to have 2 weeks of time to be able to get it all through?
Do you want to roll with this? I can if you.
I basically spend 2 weeks getting it all through. I mean, this semester has been insane because I've had to redo all of my courses and I'm putting them in this format. And yeah, I think that's why a lot of educators around the world are just going insane right now because that's what we're doing.
But I also think that I think it depends what you're trying to do, and you have to choose your objective really in a really careful way. Because I've done a bunch of murals for my introductory geology class, honestly, where I've kept them very short. There's one concept we're after, and we've done lots of exercises that last 30, 40 minutes, and they're self-contained and they work fine. So I think it's an issue of magnitude and what you're trying to do. You know, if you're building a project on there, it's going to last for weeks. If you're doing something complex, it could last for days or hours or minutes, whatever. But if you do something that's small, really focused, it can work. So I think it's an issue of scaling.
Yeah, and possibly also age group, because intro to geology is different than the senior engineers I'm trying to work with or so. And I do think that we have to simplify it a bit just to let them not get into that place of absolute madness and ambiguity. And I think that that does make a difference.
And the ones that I'm giving the intro geology kids, there is no ambiguity at all. It is do this, do this, and pull this together in some kind of thinking conclusion. So they are not like what you just did. It's very
so when Karen and I have done exercises like this, we've used it, like I have used it in my research development class, because students who are working to develop an independent research project, they have no guidelines. Like, this is the first time in their life they've been told to go out and create something and follow your interests and see where it takes you. They don't know what that means, and they think there's something wrong with them for the sense of being lost that they feel. And really, everyone else in the class feels that too, and they just have to learn to manage it and support each other through that process. So this is really an activity that's targeted to more advanced students.
So Karen and Peter, I know that we only have a few minutes left for the hour-long part of our web jam. I'd like to ask everybody that if you can stay for the next half hour, we will have more discussion. But I know, Peter, you had a couple more slides you wanted to show. Do you want to show those before we close? Or, I mean, do we have time? We've got 3 more minutes really before the top of the web jam. So some people might be dropping off.
Yeah, Karen and I can dash through them really quick just to show, and then maybe we can talk about them more if people want. So we thought we'd show you a few of our favorite activities. One that I used this year, this is one of these things that took forever to develop. Our students are expected to give feedback on other projects in my research development class, but they're terrible at giving feedback and they don't know how to do it. So I developed a feedback recipe that they can use. So there are 3 different types of academic presentations: a poster, a 3-minute thesis presentation, and then an interactive media website. And we crowdsource feedback for these presentations. And then we go around the room and students select a bit of feedback they want to give following the recipe. So a pinch of a compliment, 2 heaps of insight, an option and a handful of thanks, the more sophisticated projects also get a spoonful of impact. But crowdsourcing feedback and then having students select things to say it has been a pretty effective way of teaching them how to give good feedback.
And one of the biggest challenges faced by students a lot in project-based courses is especially them ones that are on human-centered design style projects, is students get really stuck on their first ideas, right? And finding opportunities for them and ways to nudge them out of that inertia, they're really challenging to do. So about midway through projects, we tend to use something called a shape shift exercise in person or on Mural, where students are asked to radically reimagine their project. Maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a concierge service, maybe it's a trip around the world, maybe it's a course, completely different from what they were after, but still trying to solve the same problem. And in every case, that's turned out to be universally our best and sort of most positively received exercise, because students come out of it either with really major pivot ideas for their projects, or at least the confidence that they have the ability to shift their project and not have the sense that they've wasted their time before, and that they're in fact building on their previous ideas. So that's another example.
So understanding the constellation of users is important in design thinking and in research development. So I have my students read about actor network theory. So Michel Colomb, Bruno Latour, John Law, people like that. And then we practice using those concepts to develop actor networks around simpler concepts so that they can eventually develop an actor network for their own research. So in this activity, students take a simple noun like camera or newspaper or book, and they, around the edges, put in factors that compose the network. So a person, a natural force, a place, an emotion, time, something like that. And they expand outwards. And each subsequent ring moves from specific to general. So a book becomes a place, becomes the Pacific Northwest, becomes forestry, becomes paper milling. And that connects back to technological actors and so on. And it's a really liberating thing for students to see how their major or their academic interest might relate to something that's seemingly unrelated to that, but something that they're passionate about. So an environmental studies major and an English major could both end up writing a thesis about books or wood or the forestry of Washington State or something like that.
So we just want to thank everybody for inviting us to the Web Jam. We hope you at least had a interesting time, if nothing else. And special thanks to the Wednesday Web Jam support crew, especially Katie Weber, who masterfully worked through all the breakout rooms and mural sharing and so forth, and to MIMP, who was sharing, and everybody. So thank you all, much appreciated. If you need anything, we're going to the, what's it called again? Backstage, sorry. Backstage. So, right, anyway, thank you once again.
Before we go to backstage, Mark would like to introduce our next special guest.
Yeah, so yeah, oh, you've got it up, Katie. Fantastic, thank you. So next week we will have a good friend of ours, Chris Baer. He is a leadership coach, a creative leader, and a sort of I call him a master storyteller, who is going to be joining us to help us kind of refine our storytelling techniques. And what we're going to ask all of the participants, hopefully everybody here will be able to join, and anybody who joins next week, we're asking you to bring a story, something that you want to perfect, and we will work on that together. So this is going to be Chris is a really fantastic presenter, and will bring some insights around storytelling. So we're looking forward to that next week. Great, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
To the team, Karen and Peter.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Peter and Karen for doing this. Thank you all for attending. So now we're in the backstage. We're open to discussion. We can keep talking about what we did and the challenges with that. Anybody have questions for Karen and Peter, or reactions to the Web Jam?
I'm curious about something. So I went for undergrad for cultural anthropology, and us people, we live in the gray area. But I remember friends and colleagues from the hard sciences, especially in math, had a horrendously hard time living in the gray. So for them, there was one single answer, like,
yep.
right? A single black and white response. So how, you know, so it sounds like you're saying, yep. So is that something that you encounter, and how are you navigating that and kind of showing them or helping them open up to exploring the gray areas of life?
Oh, it's a great question. And I think we're up against it, not just in, you're right, it's a serious issue in the sciences, but it's not only in the sciences, because people are so used to being taught in this conventional way where, you know, this is right, this is right, this is right, especially in the US with the whole No Child Left Behind system, where it's all been very heavily, I think last year's class or the years before, the graduated university was the first one to have gone through this system where it was largely standardized tests for metrics. So it's produced students who don't have the confidence to grapple with this. That's why this ambiguity thing is, as weird as it is worth doing, but it doesn't work if you just do that, right? That is just introducing, it's the tip of the iceberg. So the way we tend to do it is gradually, you know, you slowly give them fewer and fewer instructions. You slowly move them into spaces that are where they have to draw their own conclusion. One of the things especially with science students, is if you can get them to a space where they are calling sort of empathy gathering data collection, and they can think of the data as evidence that leads them to a conclusion. So mapping the design thinking process onto the scientific method actually works surprisingly well, and it helps them bridge that gap between the black and white and the gray. But you have to do it baby steps, you know, inch by inch by inch, or centimeter by centimeter by centimeter, to get them into that space. And it's not always easy. And once in a while you get a student who just can't do it. They want an answer. They only want one answer. But that's when we have some conversations about science, because science isn't really like that. It's a deception that you get through the educational system, that science is black and white. But it literally isn't. And there are some things we can know and test. There are lots of things we can't. I mean, consider being a geologist, right? I am never going to see a magma chamber for the volcanoes that I study. I will never know what that's like or how it works. So I have to infer it from data. So there are lots of inroads. Sorry, that was a really long answer. That was a really good question.
I'm going to interject here because I had two people raise their hand. I'm going to start with Frankie. Frankie, if you want to unmute and ask your question, please feel free to.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the really great experience, because it's so much fun to just learn and play around. I'm very curious about what Karen just mentioned. One thing is, when there's no kind of like a standardized test for science or math, how would the new grading or assessments be for project-based learning, creative mindset, and all the, it's great, right? It's like students need that, but on the other hand, how do you show the results to just the school management, the parents, and
right? No, that's I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and Peter can talk to this too. So there's two buckets that I can just comment on briefly. One is the one that I'm sure Peter will chime in on, which is in the design classes, where there's less of a set of information that specifically needs to get learned. So you don't need those kinds of assessments as much, and instead you assess them more on their growth and their ability to reflect on their growth and the actual project and the path of the project. So that's more, in those classes, we rely more on a lot of verbal assessment, written assessments for them that you then translate into a grade best you can. But giving them a set of guidelines for what constitutes the different grade levels, so they know, like a rubric, so they know what they're getting into. In the case of the sciences, where I use a lot of project-based work, there are a lot more conventional metrics you can use that they need to achieve. If they're producing a report, for instance, or an analysis, or they're running an analytical project, it can still have huge design components and hugely autonomous components to it. But there are metrics and expectations for good writing, for effective use of data, for proper use of data. And you can use those as a way to help assess them. And what I do in that class in particular, those classes, is give them all a series of descriptors for what constitutes an A, what constitutes a B, what constitutes a C. And then I ask the students to tell me what they've achieved in their own analysis when they turn in the project. And then I have a chat with them. Wow, I just got this huge echo.
So
Did
maybe
that
I can
answer
answer
your
that.
question, Becky? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
So I'll try and give you a very short version of this. But from my point of view, what matters most is that the skill development occurs within a context of need. So students they need to see that the skill is useful and important before we ask them to use it. It has to be in context. So the example I would use of this as somebody coming from the fine arts and performing arts world is in our creative arts curriculum at Texas State. The Honors College just got a completely project-based core curriculum class that's supposed to teach the fine arts. And what students do is they design museum exhibits, or they design performing arts calendars, or they design a theater season. And that requires them to know how to assess what works to put in there. So it's giving them the framework for the need for the skill. That's what I think matters. And this course, by the way, we just got approved maybe a year and a half ago, extremely controversial among the curriculum committee, because they couldn't imagine how you could have a core curriculum arts class that used project-based learning. But it's been very successful.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Peter. I just wanted to make sure I got to the other raised hand. Jen Sutherland, if you would like to unmute and ask your question.
I was wondering, you're obviously from a university, and do you have any ideas or lessons or learnings around teaching more senior people like leaders and managers in organizations, and how we can apply some of these things in a much higher level?
Well, we've tried in a few contexts. It's hard, but I think from what I've seen, the same principle applies. That the leaders have to see that the change is needed, which is why empathy building activities are so important, because they have to understand their own needs and the needs of the students that they're working for, or the staff that they're working for. And if they don't see the need, they're not gonna champion the change. I feel like I deal with this every day in my life. I'm like, we have to build this new system. What we're using is terrible. We're updating 15 spreadsheets and none of them talk to each other, that sort of thing. But they don't understand that. So empathy building, I think, is really key. And I think sometimes people at the top are completely disconnected and don't care. What they care about is that the job is done, but the experience of the staff is something else.
And even trying to get these kinds of courses to exist in a conventional educational institution has been like throwing yourself up against a brick wall. So I don't have a good answer to your question, Jen, because we're not good at it. And I think that the approach Peter and I have taken in a way is we figure we'll try to train the students so that when they're in charge, they'll do a better job. Long game, we're playing a long game. So I don't know, we'd love to talk about it some more, but it's a great question.
Sharon, I saw that you put a hand up. I didn't know. I just wanted to make sure I'm getting to people who might be more silent too.
Thank you. I don't think this is 100% on point, but it certainly, I view it as partially on point. And I've seen it for 26 years. And that is senior management in companies, particularly Silicon Valley companies, have a methodology that all of senior and sometimes junior managers are involved in. The last place I was at did it the best. The CEO had already sold 2 companies each for over $1 billion. And we called it the pitcher catcher. I'm taking it back. Infield, outfield, and bleachers. And that was, how do we understand this company in terms of the things that impact us immediately? Our customers, our revenue, our competitive environment. We had to be really, really sharp on that stuff. Outfield was, what are the big companies that really affect us? Suppose Oracle does this, suppose Microsoft does that. And then, what's going on in the outfield? What's really, how do we make ourselves as smart as a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan investment banker? And so I know that doesn't fit into this exactly, but I would share it as a methodology that I have seen pretty much in every company I've been in for the last 25 years.
Thanks, Sean, for that perspective.
I wanted to ask, I had a question for Peter and Karen. Are you doing full remote right now, or are you doing hybrid courses with some remote learning and some in person?
We're different. Peter's is a more interesting answer. Mine's full remote. I have a class of 75 intro geology students, and I have a class of 25 kids doing a design thinking project-based class on the environment, on environmental problems. Peter.
Yeah, I'm using what's called the high flex approach, which was the buzzword back in March. So in other words, students get to choose their level of engagement with the class. Every class is both in person and online simultaneously, which allows, you know, if a student is feeling really scared about the world one day, they can just join by Zoom. And if they are feeling good about the world, they can show up in person. What's weird is that most students are choosing to join virtually. It surprised me, but actually I'm teaching a very, like an introduction, a welcome to college class for honors students with about 15 or 16 students in it. And most of them are showing up in person, but the advanced students in the research class are showing up mostly remotely. So it's kind of flipped my expectations.
Huh.
And you probably know this, Steve, but in case non-Colgate people don't know this, the students were given the option whether they could come back or not, but they were heavily encouraged to come back to campus. So most of them are on campus, even though the classes are not all in person. Like I couldn't do the 75-person student class in person without, you know, doing it in packs, because we don't have a lot of big rooms. We have a lot of small rooms. So and the hybrid notion, I did a bunch of testing this summer on hybrid classrooms where you have students online and students in person and the faculty member in person. And we tried all sorts of different tech approaches, and a lot of people are trying to teach that way. And that is the biggest problem right now. It's a disaster for the remote students. They can hardly hear or participate because we just don't have the tech's just not good enough to do it well. Or people aren't trying hard to integrate those remote students into the in-person classes.
Yeah, we're being asked to do that internationally, where there's some live here, and it's shit show is the term that leaps to mind.
That's right. And people are kind of like shrugging it off and continuing to do what they do, when in fact these kids who are remote can't hear anything. Like we literally tested it all over the room. People, you know, you put masks on, you can't hear anything. Like if you don't have a lot of sort of voice amplifiers and live cameras that maybe even not the remote controlled ones. I mean, not the automated ones that follow you, because you can get out of their connection. Have someone who can follow you. And then how do you have a discussion? How do you do anything that's hands-on? I can't imagine doing it with an international component. I have a few kids who are in Asia for my intro class. And I just have a special session for them because otherwise their class is at 3 a.m, which is inhumane, you know? So it's a lot of extra. I know you know.
I saw a question come through chat about activities we use to teach empathy, and Karen and I have done this a number of times over the years, but actually teaching students how to listen and how to do interviews is really important, because the thing most of them want to do, if we say go out and talk to 5 people about this subject, they go out and they talk at somebody about that subject, and they don't listen. And so we teach them to listen 75% of the time and to talk 25% of the time. If they find that they're talking more than 25%, they're talking too much. Your goal is to understand this person's perspective, whether you agree or disagree with them. It's to get information. And I think that's one of the most important things, just listening. And as a musician, I feel like listening comes fairly naturally. You learn to listen to things around you and put it together. But most students are very bad at this. They think interviews mean information exchange, me to you.
Peter,
so yeah, undoing that.
I have curious about your arts background. I have some friends that I collaborate with now and then who are in the more classical arts space, where, you know, audiences are still expected to come in, sit down quietly and consume our art and then leave as quietly as possible. Is that something that you've given any thought to, like the design thinking approach to arts,
Yeah.
and
So-
especially more classical type of arts?
Yeah, so my undergraduate work was completely classical. I was an organist and a harpsichordist, and I did a lot of improvisation, 18th century improvisation. But my PhD work was all about soundscapes in the natural environment, and treating the sounds of the environment as a kind of musical composition and how you understand it spatially. And so I had my students a few weeks ago, like, the point is that you engage with the environment. You're not a passive consumer. You move through it and you understand it differently based on the time of day and the season and all of these sort of things. And so I had some of my introductory students, my freshmen, first years, build sensory maps of campus a couple of weeks ago. And some of them made smell maps of campus, and some made touch and texture maps of campus. So I think the engagement thing is really important. And the classical music world has just not done very well with this. There are a lot of reasons it hasn't done well. I mean, there are principles and properties of acoustics that mean your performance hall has to look a certain way and be constructed of certain kind of materials, and sound moves better in certain environments. But it's a different set of values. And I think they're slowly coming around to it. But I kind of made the conversion when I went to grad school after Rice. I was like, I'm done with the classical elitism stuff. We need to get people involved in this.
Anybody have other questions
or comments? I know there was, so I've seen some discussion on the chat about using Mural and maybe giving people more familiarity with Mural before a session like this, but it sounds like that's something that both of you, Karen and Peter, focus on early on in your courses, is getting students up to speed on Mural. And I know we are the facilitators here, use Mural a lot, but I know there's some new people here today who haven't had a lot of experience with it and had trouble getting in.
I think there's two things. There's two things at work here that you just circled around, right? One is the actual skill set that you need to use Mural, which I don't think is actually that challenging if you design the Mural carefully and are there to walk people through it. But what we generally do for that, Peter and I do both, is we simply allow enough time, which was limited here, but allow enough time in the classes to have the buffer where you can walk through them, and literally even design murals where the only real point of the mural is to learn how to use Mural, right? So you play with it a bunch, and the students, they're quick, right? They're used to using digital based apps, and they tend to learn pretty quickly. So it's not that challenging. And then they slowly, each time you use it, someone learns another trick or another way through it. So you do it kind of organically. But the other thing you're circling around is Mural's great, but it has some big issues. And some of its issues are one we ran into with Mural 3, which is where it changes the permissions on you out of the blue. And I've had a lot of conversations with Mural help staff on this. They know it's a bug and they haven't figured out how to fix it yet. And it will do, like I do things where I'm sending 35 students or 40 students at a time to different murals through another mural. And when all of those go bad on you, you're out of luck, and it's a gamble. I have tried enough of the other boards, Stormboard, Miro, Google, Jamboard, and a few others. I like Mural the best in terms of it having the lowest bar for students to kind of connect to, but it comes with this baggage, which is right now frustrating. And we just lived that experience.
Yeah, that is, and in a real classroom environment, you can modify and do things quickly to overcome technological difficulties that you can't when you're sitting in your home, right, with no IT staff behind you.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly.
Do y'all have, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Alexia.
I was just going to ask, do y'all have suggestions for future reading or exploration online for those of us who may be new at applying this in the classroom?
We have our materials that we're happy to share. We haven't put them in a shareable, we haven't published anything or put it in any kind of space. We have a few things that we could collect for you if you give us a little time to do and send you, which would be fine. Like we have a description that, because Katie was in in a design class with Peter and me, and then she helped teach one of them with me this past year. And we wrote a whole summary of in a Google slide deck of how we moved the class online, because she was running the class with me when we had to shift online. So we could send you that and some other things like that if that would help.
Yeah, I'm a librarian, but I'm collaborating with an art teacher and a sociology teacher to create a design thinking class for our honors program at our university.
So, which university are you
at? Campbell University. It's near Raleigh.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, I mean, right now, I can't speak for Peter, but I think this is true. We're like slammed beyond recognition trying to function online. So and everybody is, we know that. So we're not special in any way. So I can't promise right now that I can do it like super quickly, but I can do it as soon as I can. So if it's not an emergency situation, that would be ideal. But Steve, I'm talking about even just sending you stuff. We need to put it in a format that's useful and accessible, because most of our stuff's in formats where we use them for class, right? And it won't mean anything to just
we can share that. If you send it to us, we can put it in a format that people can use.
Yeah. So. Sorry, you're missing my point. My point is that it's not in a way that you could do that either, right? This is, imagine your own notes, right? Your own notes of how something works. You know how it works, but no one else could translate it necessarily. Sure. So we would have to figure out how to do that. Once we do, then we can go from there. And we'll do it as quickly as we can. Super happy to share it. It just won't be like an immediate turnaround, is all I'm trying to say.
Well, and Alexia, if you reach out to us, just tell us like what you're working on, and we can try and figure out how to help, because I think like Karen was saying, it's going to depend.
Right. What you need.
Because I could send you example syllabi and things like that we've developed, but that may not be what you're looking for.
Me too. Yeah, just ping us and we will totally respond and take care of it. And then Steve will send you what we can in terms of templates and things over time. But we will totally respond as quickly as we possibly can, and we want to help.
I see that Beatrice Perry raised her hand if she would like to unmute.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I apologize because I arrived really late, so what I'm asking might not be really focused, but I was wondering if you have experience with online sessions with people who have different kind of disability, like hearing impairment, visual impairment, especially in tools like for ideation. I'm familiar with Mural and these tools, but they're not accessible for everyone. So imagine after having like interviewed people, so collected their needs, passing to the ideation phase, how do you put together like different people actually? Yes, because for now, the only thing that worked is, well, sometimes Excel works and sometimes it's just been conversations, but I was wondering if you had if someone has this kind of, is tackling this kind of challenge or has tips.
Peter, do you have any?
So this is obviously a real problem. So what we've been doing at Texas State, Texas State's super concerned about accessibility on all levels, is the annotation or closed caption function on Zoom. So it should automatically close caption things, but it's very hit or miss.
And I'm talking about Italian. Everything is in Italian. I'm based in Italy, so it's with Italian people. So many things, like usually we're in a company, we use Teams, but Teams puts subtitles only in English, not in Italian. So that's one thing to get around.
So we did, I don't have a good answer, and I will say, and no offense to the alumni who are here, Colgate is not good at accessibility and is not thinking. So we don't have a lot of any institutional setups to support that at Colgate at this stage. It's moving that way, but it's not there yet. The course we taught last spring had students thinking about accessibility issues. And that was where we started to document all the ways that Colgate is not accessible. And so we didn't actually solve many of those, but we had a few students working on some of those questions. We came up with mostly Colgate-centric solutions, so not helpful. But the thing I'm thinking, so bottom line is I don't have a really great answer, but one thing that is a little bit meta that might be useful is we've had a huge, I think I'd like to say success with incorporating students as co-instructors into the class, or as sort of, more than just a TA, but really much more involved. And I think there might be a way to craft something where you bring in someone, and I realize you're working maybe more with professionals, but there might be a resource where you could tap students who are learning about accessibility or who are engaged in accessibility teaching or something, and could come in and serve as links to help develop ideas, or even as links with people who need them, or come up with ideas like bringing in students who need practice learning how to be a translator to do the closed captioning in Italian, for instance, or an interpreter. So a lot of those might be developable by tapping. There's a lot of great talent that could use practice, is what I'm trying to say. And your situation would provide a great opportunity for someone to get valuable practice doing something that might help mitigate some of those issues. I don't know, that's just an idea.
Okay. Because we were, like, when we do interviews, we had like sign language interpreters, and but the idea is like in the collecting needs, it's not an issue. I mean, we've managed to communicate with people with hearing impairment. My wonder was how to do a good ideation session in which everybody can participate. Not only
these boards, I'm not pushing mural in any way, but these brainstorm boards are nice because they have a visual component. And so you can, if you get people to speak and as they put things on the board, and if you have some kind of a closed caption or interpreter, it gets more dynamic, and that might add, support the audio component with the visual. So you're not just doing it by audio. But I don't know that that's necessarily the best solution. We did find that worked nicely going online, and our students, despite being spread all over the world, connected very strongly with each other through these kinds of activities. But speaking, just like Jen just said here in the chat, teaching them how to say what they're thinking as they're writing it down got a lot over that barrier. In a simple
yeah, and that's a good skill to have just in general, getting it outside your brain. But I would also say, again, I like to say this is the musician. We live in a very ocular centric culture and society, and I think design is guilty of that in general. Is it's very visual, and there aren't a lot of good tools that I know of that are audio or audio based. Most of it is visual, and I don't have great ideas for that.
So everybody, it is 12:30 now. I want to thank Peter and Karen again for spending their time to prepare this whole presentation and spending so much time with us. Thanks so much, guys. It was great. We're sorry about any technical difficulties people experienced. Next week, we hope you will join us to see Chris Bear, same time next week. And if you guys, I think Peter and Karen have put their contact information in the chat if you want to grab that, or you can reach out to one of us at the Wednesday Web Jam crew to get that information if you want to get in touch with them later. But again, thanks everybody very much, and have a great week.
Thanks everybody.
All right.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Is there a link to see this video again?
Yes, on YouTube. You can, let me put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat.
Thank you.
And that's got all of our